Beginner gardeners tend to make one of two mistakes whenever they are filling up raised beds or containers for vegetable gardening. First one I see is people just using straight compost in raised beds, and for me, that's a big no-no. The second mistake I see people make is using really cheap bagged soil products that they buy from a big box store, which is also a no-no. Let's talk about the best way that you can fill up your raised beds or containers for vegetable gardening. Now, I will caveat this video that there's not an exact formula for the best raised garden mix. A lot of people will say that there is, but there are a lot of ways to accomplish what I'm going to be talking about. So a really good raised bed mix is going to accomplish three things that are super important. So one is nutrients, the second would be moisture management, and the third would be airflow to the root zone. The reason why I say don't use straight compost in your raised beds is because while it's very high in nutrients, sometimes it's too high in nutrients actually, it's not very good at airflow down to the roots, and sometimes it's not that great with moisture management because it tends to stay wet. Now, the big problem with cheap bagged soils that you would find at a box store is they tend to have really bad structure because they're using the lowest grade of peat moss that they can buy, and that's going to be very short fibers, and that stuff tends to compress over time, which cuts off airflow down to the roots and makes it really hard to get even water distribution. One of the ways you can see if you've got a high quality potting mix like what we use in our greenhouses is by seeing how much it compresses and if it holds together when you compress it. So by squeezing this, you see that it ends up coming back apart. So that means it's very resistant to compressing. Now, a high quality potting soil is going to accomplish those three things really well, and that's why you see professional growers using that for almost everything they grow, including vegetables. However, it is pretty expensive if you want to try to fill up an entire raised bed with high quality potting mix. So what you can do is essentially make your own potting soil at home, and I use the kitchen sink method for that. And what that means is you're going to throw a bunch of different ingredients into it, throw everything you can at it in order to get the most nutritionally dense while structurally sound soil as you can. So the most important ingredients that you should have in your raised bed soil are going to be things like compost, peat moss, perlite, vermiculite, worm castings, lava sand, and there's a lot more things that you can put in there as well. Your soil should be rich and dark in color, and it should be easy to work. Like, you should be able to dig in it with your bare hands, and that's how you know that it's not going to be too compact and hard for roots to get established. Remember that soil is a work in progress, and that over time you're going to be building up beneficial organisms that are in the soil, and you can actually inoculate your soil with things like mycorrhiza and beneficial microbes to get a good head start on that. And each year that you're gardening, you'll see that the volume of your soil will decrease in those beds, and that gives you another chance to add more of that yummy goodness to your soil and improve it year upon year. If you can get a nice soil that accomplishes the good airflow to the roots, good moisture management, and nutrition, most of the hard work is done with gardening.